Marcus Whitfield, the traveling doctor who had visited the Sullivan property multiple times, soon became one of the most important witnesses as the investigation widened. Under detailed questioning, he explained that Constance Sullivan always demanded very specific treatments. She displayed deep knowledge about caring for illnesses, often seen in children suffering from long-term neglect. She also asked him for calming medicines that could make someone passive or sleepy. That detail alone uncovered something even darker. Constance Sullivan had been preparing herself to handle groups of children living in terrible conditions. Everything she bought, every question she asked, and even the design of the underground space beneath the house was carefully planned to keep many children alive with the least amount of effort. A nearby businessman named Thomas Henderson added more disturbing facts. His supply records showed that Constance had steadily increased her orders for everyday items over the years. At first, this looked like she was just running a growing home. But it became clear this was evidence of a secret, expanding system. Henderson also remembered some unusual orders: extra bedding, piles of small clothing, and medicine typically used in basic care. Investigators then uncovered Ezra Sullivan's part in the situation. While Constance had been the planner, Ezra carried out the harsh daily tasks. Several children who survived said Ezra was the one who punished them and kept strict control. The changes he made to the basement were not simple updates. They were cold improvements meant to better trap and control human lives. The worst discoveries came from the old farm's records. Dozens of names showed up as missing, transferred, or listed with vague notes like difficult or weak labels that matched bodies buried underneath the home. Investigators now suspected that this was just one place in a larger setup. As more facts came to light, similar disappearances were discovered in Pennsylvania, Maryland, North Carolina, and South Carolina. The missing children shared common traits: they were poor, orphaned, or from families too weak to search for them. The government stepped in. Federal marshals began to assist, which was rare at that time. Law enforcement was usually local, but this case crossed state lines and became one of the earliest examples of a national-level investigation in American history. Legal matters became complicated. Every state had different rules, and many crimes happened across state borders. Still, more children who had survived began to speak out. Their stories matched long imprisonment, repeated cruelty, and mental control. They told how new children were isolated, punished, and trained until they accepted their new reality. A strange ranking system existed inside the basement, where older children were rewarded for helping control younger ones. Some of them even began to believe that they were abandoned by their families and deserved their fate. A few who had been locked away for years refused to leave when rescued. They had been taught that the world outside was more dangerous than the dark basement. Details about how Constance found her victims began to emerge. She had deals with dishonest workers at orphanages and homes for the poor. She also used contacts in big cities who targeted children that no one would notice were gone. Worst of all, notes showed she had been planning to expand. More children were being held, and letters revealed plans to open similar places in new locations. This terrible operation had been interrupted just in time. The major breakthrough came from one child. Rebecca, a 14-year-old girl, had been there longer than anyone else. She had not lost her spirit. Her memory held everything. Rebecca had been taken from her farm in Pennsylvania in 1829 when she was 9. A woman pretending to be a family member had lured her with sweet food and a ride to town. She woke up chained in the underground room. Unlike others, she remembered every person who visited the Sullivan farm. She listened in on discussions. Rebecca explained that the Sullivans were only part of a bigger system. She heard names, places, and details about other hidden farms. She even remembered a visit just 2 weeks before the children were found. A rich man arrived in a fine carriage with 2 companions. Rebecca and 3 others were taken upstairs and closely examined. The man checked their bodies, muscles, and teeth. He compared them like animals being sold. In the end, he said none were acceptable. But he left behind a letter listing what he wanted: specific ages, appearances, and personalities. That letter, written in cold, businesslike words, was signed H. Blackwood, with an address in Charleston, South Carolina. When authorities checked, they found Henry Blackwood, a wealthy plantation master. He had been buying children for years, pretending they were for house duties. The truth was much worse. This opened a whole new horror. Southern plantation owners were using the system to get total control over young workers. Unlike enslaved adults, these children had no legal identity and no family searching for them. They could be overworked, harmed, or worse, with no fear of being caught. Some children were used for violent games or shocking medical experiments. Wealthy families were involved. Investigators soon faced resistance. Those connected to the system had money, influence, and power. Threats arrived. Sheriff Crawford received warnings. Deputy Webb was attacked. Dr. Whitfield lost patience. The pressure was meant to stop the investigation. Then something terrible happened. Timothy, one of the rescued children who had been giving important testimony, vanished from a safe shelter. No one saw him again. The message was clear talking. Came with risk. Still, the team moved forward. Marshals gave extra protection. Armed guards were placed at the Sullivan home. The legal system was now being tested. Could it stand against crimes protected by wealth? Then, Constance Sullivan died. In jail. Officially, it was suicide, but the timing was suspicious. She had agreed to give full testimony, naming buyers and helpers. Now the chance was gone. Her death shocked everyone. If someone wanted her gone, who would be next? Just as hope faded, help came from a surprising source. A man named Samuel Pierce stepped forward. He had worked for Blackwood as a supervisor. Guilt drove him to reveal everything. He had records paperwork linking Sullivan children to southern plantations. He had watched their suffering. Samuel's testimony became one of the most horrifying in the country's history. He told how Blackwood had 2 areas on his land, one normal plantation, and one secret space called the experimental quarters. There, children from the Sullivan farm were not used for work. They were used for cruel tests with help from doctors. At Charleston Medical College, these experiments pushed human limits, tested medicines, and caused unbearable pain. Blackwood wrote everything down. He tracked the effects of sickness, poison, and operations done without care. 30-7 children had been sent there. Only 4 survived long enough to be sold again. The rest died from testing, hunger, or beatings. Samuel also spoke of meetings where Blackwood and others discussed purchases. Politicians, business leaders, and more were involved. The network stretched across the nation. The worst detail came from a gathering in 1833. Blackwood hosted an event where buyers viewed the children like objects. They tested their reactions and placed orders. It was like a livestock market. The money involved was huge. Prices depended on age, health, and purpose. The network earned hundreds of thousands and at times money. Based on Samuel's information, raids were planned. Marshals and local teams hit targets across the South. They found hidden buildings, records, and over 100 more children. Arrests followed. Blackwood, the doctors, and even a Georgia lawmaker were caught. Evidence showed cruelty that shocked the nation. Experiments included infections, toxins, and surgery without care. Officials in public systems had taken bribes. Judges had approved fake adoptions. Some officers helped hide crimes. Legal trials lasted for years. Some suspects used power to escape, but the truth could not be hidden. The Sullivan case led to new laws protecting children. It created new systems for adoption, government care, and tracking missing persons. The press reported every detail. People demanded change. Survivors began slow recovery. Most had forgotten normal life. The 47 children from the basement needed deep medical and emotional care. Some healed, others never did. Rebecca became well known, but she avoided the spotlight after the trials. She was placed with a peaceful family and later built a life of her own. Ezra Sullivan was hanged in Richmond in 1836. His last words were a plea for forgiveness. Blackwood was sentenced, but died in prison under strange conditions. The doctors lost their licenses and were jailed. Charleston Medical College faced major scandal. Many powerful figures escaped justice. Some fled the country. One politician lost his job, but was never charged. Constance had earned thousands from her crimes. Much of that money vanished into secret accounts. The Sullivan house was destroyed. A memorial was placed there. The investigation helped start better protection laws. Virginia led the way, followed by others. The case proved that local systems were not enough. New federal rules gave more power to marshals. The public began to understand how easily children could be harmed without proper safeguards. The phrase "another Sullivan case" became a warning sign. Dr. Whitfield spent the rest of his life helping vulnerable children. He opened free clinics and pushed for better medical ethics. Sheriff Crawford became a federal marshal and led future child safety efforts. His reports were studied by officers nationwide. The children's stories showed both the damage caused and the strength of the human spirit. Some built peaceful lives. Others battled mental illness. A few did not survive long. Letters found in the Sullivan basement uncovered more leads. Some led to justice. Others remained mysteries. The biggest realization was that the Sullivan case was just one piece of a much bigger nightmare. Similar crimes had been happening across America for decades. It was not just about one evil family. It was about a society that had looked away. The town near the farm struggled with guilt. How had no one noticed? Could more have been done? These hard questions led to more open conversations. The case taught people that pretending not to see evil allows it to grow. Respectable appearances can hide horror. And sometimes, stopping evil requires just one person to speak up. In the end, justice came not from complex systems, but from individuals with courage. William Hutchinson made a simple report. Sheriff. Crawford took action. Rebecca spoke her truth. These moments, though small, changed history. The basement remained sealed. But the memory of what happened, there is a reminder. Our silence can protect evil, but our voices can stop it. Share this story if it moved you. Subscribe to hear more buried truths from history. The past holds many more shadows, and together we will uncover them.